Okay, so when we last left our heroes,
That's it. I missed it.
I gotta share my screen. What it's called? Share screen. And then slideshow. Well, this is Church of the Nativity, so we're in Bethlehem.
Okay, Bethlehem. And that was when we could see the end of.
Yes, and this is a rerun. You saw this slide last time. And of course the top. Yeah. Okay, this is kind of where we left off at the door of humility.
We get to go to the garden today.
And again, the ostensible reason for when they first did that was to keep the livestock out. But it's become the door of humility, and there are a couple of more interior ones that make you do the same thing. So, okay, and now I don't know if I'm just gonna. These are notes that I found that I thought were interesting. So, and I interspersed them with the pictures. Okay, so now this Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, which is under Palestinian control, is owned by 3 church authorities: Greek Orthodox, most of the building and the furnishings, Roman Catholic, and the Armenian Apostolic.
Wow.
There is also the Coptic Orthodox, of which we have a neighbor down the street, and the Syriac Orthodox hold minor rites of worship at the Armenian church in the northern transept, and at the altar of the Nativity. Now, this is I included this because it's reality. God must be shaking his head at us constantly. There have been repeated brawls among the monk trainees over quiet respect for others' prayers. So if one's in an area and they're making too much noise, they really get into fisticuffs.
Oh my word.
Even the division of floor space for cleaning responsibilities is contention, and so sometimes they've had to call the Palestinian police to restore order. It's just, when you hear this, it's like, really? We are.
It's a holy church. They're in there.
So,
What is
space?
What does the word Coptic mean? Because there's one of the churches.
yes, and that Coptic Orthodox is right down, yeah.
Yes.
And it's an Egyptian-based Christian community, Coptics.
And these are Greek.
Yeah, there are 2 Egyptian-based, there's Ethiopians, and then there's the Coptic Christians, and they both have a prominent place in these holy sites. And what? I'm sorry, would you ask?
I said, these are the Greeks.
No, I don't think so. It says Coptic Orthodox, so I'm going with Egyptian.
But they have
There is a Greek Orthodox, and we had a wonderful one in Muskegon. They had a festival every year.
This one
that
does.
we went
But
to.
not this one. I mean, one here does.
Oh.
I don't know whether it's this one or one.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know about the Coptic Orthodox.
Yeah.
Okay, this was our wonderful Christian Palestinian guide. She was one that I told you that said, although at that time it was difficult for Christians to remain, she was committed with her family. She said someone has to stay to tell the stories and preserve the heritage. And she took us through parts of the Church of the Nativity, which over the years, if my understanding is correct, many of these churches were built shortly after Constantine made Christianity legal. The Church of the Golgotha and the Resurrection is actually considered to be the first church of that era. So this would be somewhere shortly thereafter. However, hundreds of years later, it was sacked and taken over and covered, destroyed, so forth, both of them. In the case of the Church of the Resurrection that we'll see later, the newer construction, which was allowed to take place and exists now, goes back to the 12th century. So it's still very old. This has a similar piece, but I tell you that because when you see these patterns on the floor, and there's going to be some that I'll show you up on the walls, they have been either destroyed or covered. And some of them were preserved and uncovered, so you can see to this day some of the ornate patterns that go back to the original. So beautiful mosaic work on the floors. Okay, and here's where I'm talking. You see most of the walls up above here are white, but in the middle you have these areas, and these are those mosaic patterns that used to cover the walls, but somehow in the decay of the years, the earthquakes, the sacking, whatever, they were not only partially destroyed, but they were covered over. So these are the ones, the pieces that were uncovered and date back a lot further.
So is that like the tallest ceiling ever, and those are lights that I'm seeing, those lines?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the height. I would guess 50 feet to 65 feet, because I've been in
Okay,
cathedrals
so
like that.
that's wiring.
But yeah, they have lights that come down. And there may have been, yeah, these are, you can see, like, for example, this one
Yeah,
comes down to this hanging fixture. So,
Okay.
yeah. And these fixtures are typical of the Greek Orthodox and the other places that will ornately decorate things, and that you may go for that, you may not, but that's typical. So,
So theirs is
Oh, wow.
more, theirs is more for beauty instead of retelling the story like stained glass.
Well,
I would say it's lifting up the holiness of the story by giving it their understanding of the best decoration they can give it. So I don't think it's de-emphasizing the story. I think it's emphasizing the story in a way that we would say, well, let's just preserve the original. But that's a different mindset. And
okay, so I'm seeing 2 gas heaters in there. Must be cold at some point.
yeah, it does get cold. I'm not seeing the heat.
So they're poles with
Oh.
domes over them.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. They look like they fit right in.
They do, they do, but that
But yes,
surprises
yeah,
me.
and of course, these buildings would have no central
Right.
heating or air or anything like that. So, yeah, the climate there can get, we were there in February, and it was pleasant, like a rainy spring in the Midwest. But there were times you could get chilly, for sure. Okay, so this was an example of one of the, and I don't remember if, I'm guessing this was a Greek Orthodox section of the Church of Nativity. They each have their own sections. And you can see it's active. They worship there, they do their things. And this is an example of the ornate kind of decoration that resonates with people who have kind of been brought up in that kind of a tradition. And it may be a turnoff to, it was kind of a turnoff to me. I've since become more understanding of it, so.
What is on either side of the cross?
Okay, these would be icons. I can't make out who it is, but oftentimes in these churches, they will have depictions of saints or Mary or, and so that's what, certainly there's a figure here. And this one's blocked.
The black, is that, what is that coming down? Is that on the wall to look like it's radiating from the cross, or?
Oh, this here, yes, yeah, that's an ornate pattern that's typical of the archwork that they would do in those days. And you see in the dome, or the half dome, it's got something that might represent rays of light or a halo. And I don't know all of the symbolism here, if it's anything more than floral or, yes, but it all, and the cross is central up there. And as you come down, it would be hard to see in this photo, but there will be icons here and here of biblical figures. And this one is actually pretty modest compared. I've seen, maybe they'll have a picture, there's one that just hundreds of pictures. And that's where I learned that when they come to worship, that was built that way so that people could see visually the stories of the Bible because they were not literate. And that was their way of.
The canvas to the left,
That's what I was just
that
saying,
is, looks like a large crowd.
It
Or
says,
Yeah.
is Jesus in that crowd?
This looks like a nativity scene. I'm seeing Mary here and the baby here, maybe.
Oh,
So this I think it's nativity, because that would make sense for this church.
right.
So if I may be able to find a better photo of this as get a little bit later on down the road. We didn't see very much activity from the monks there. They have their own times of day that kind of avoid the tourists to do their thing. This is bizarre. If you were like me, I'm going to go see the birthplace. What's that going to be like, And from everything I've learned from Ken Bailey, what I was expecting and what I found, it didn't match until, I can see now after I've learned a little bit. But again, the way they commemorate holy sites is just a different approach than I'm used to. And it's what is. So I don't want to denigrate it. This is a tremendously holy site for Christians all around the world and for others. And so people will pilgrimage to this. And this is the entrance to the steps down to what's called the Grotto of the Nativity. So grotto, stones, caves, a lot of the dwelling places were carved out of caves or stone, and that's what we think happened here. And that there's catacombs underneath, and I found a video, I don't know if I'm going to find it today, where they actually go and explore the catacombs underneath the Church of the Nativity. And the catacombs down there were places that were holy sites. They were places to keep safe. They were dwelling places. And it's thought that when Joseph and Mary traveled to Bethlehem, that they went to a place where she had family, or he had family, and I think it's hers, but I don't, maybe it's Joseph's family. I guess it would have to have been Joseph's. And when they went there, what we hear is there's no room at the inn, and we think of the Motel 6 or something. And those were not prominent in those times. There were people that would take in folks, like in the parable of the prodigal son, or of the Good Samaritan, rather. But in this case, what Ken Bailey tells us is that when you went to some place like this, you would look for extended family, someone that was to take you in. And this is, so the innkeeper, I'm not sure if that translates to whoever they talked to, that was kind of organizing for the clan, who's coming in, who can stay where, all this stuff. And Ken Bailey's, we'll look at this at some point. He has a Middle Eastern view of the nativity setting. And it really challenges or takes away the idea of the old wooden shack outside with the hay and it goes more into a stone dwelling place that was shared by humans and animals alike.
So were you shocked when you went in and it's almost like a tourist place?
Yes.
Yeah. And they have it encased with a building, and so the nativity is right in that arch. Is that what you're saying?
Down the stairs,
grotto.
into the grotto. And the staircase is a half semicircle there. And so there's stairs going down.
That would be like an 8x8 place in that, or something like that?
Down below, I have pictures that you'll be able to see.
Good.
It's more like 10 by 20.
Oh, wow. Because the animals were down there too.
We had to have room for them.
Well, yeah, all the structure was not there. So yes, this when it was more open. In the catacombs beneath, this is thought to be where the family of Joseph had their main dwelling places. And when they came, Ken said it would have been typical, especially with Mary being with child and we're not yet married. Yeah, okay, I'm organizing who's staying where. Okay, you go to the manger. All right, well, that was a place, oftentimes the people who tended the cattle, it wasn't a place of honor. But it was a place where you could be sheltered and keep warm.
Yeah.
So, and it looks different because it's in stone, and there's a ground level, and then there's a raised area with a manger trough chiseled out, and then there's an upper level. And what happens in the cold nights, you would feed the animals, and you would climb up into the higher level, and the animals would sleep at the lower level right below you, and the body heat from the animals, along with other things that come along with animals, would waft up.
That's why our manger scenes have dual levels. Depicting that.
So it's very different than the creche that you're going to see on the town square or whatever. But But it's good to know, and I think Ken's view, if you're interested in that, it's just a one video series. He really gives a great picture of what it would probably have been like in those days. So now we come in and we're all, when the tourists are there are photos online of this wide open if you want to see it.
Yeah.
So you can get a better picture. But this is how, it's just kind of a free-for-all going down in. Here's our guide over in the corner. And many of these people were with my group, although the women were not. So it was a mixture of, and I should, go ahead.
What we're looking at right in the middle with the black and then the kind of grayish with the head, that's the head, the bald head of some guy, right? That's
Right here? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it
Yeah.
looks like a little.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, it could be
blanket
a
with
knob to put
with
your
a
hand
really
on.
shiny
No.
egg.
It was a crystal ball.
It looks like an egg.
So-
An egg. That's what I
And-
got. Egghead.
As you might imagine, you have to time these well, and that's why we had good guides, because you can go and stand all day to get in.
Yeah.
They at least picked times where, yes, we had to stand in line, and the line went all the way around and so it took a while to get in there. And then they control that you're not staying down there too long, so that they can keep the line moving. So it's hard when it's like this to try and soak in, what is this? Especially when you don't know what to expect. If you ever get a chance to go, I would say look at some of these things in advance so that when you get there, there are scant, tiny places where you can see the original stone. But to preserve it, again, this is their idea of we've got to preserve this, they just completely cover it with marble. So there's so much of it you can't see, and there's just scant little pieces you can. All right, let's go down into the grotto of the Nativity. Here's when it's empty. I took this picture from online, and I have a couple now. It looks like a fireplace, right? And you'll see these are on the right are the steps down where people come in, and then you file out through the steps on the left. And all of this marble flooring is, of course, covering over what was preserved there, presumably more original to the time. I don't know how far these floors go back. The grotto holds a prominent religious significance to Christians as the birthplace of Jesus. It's the oldest site continually used as a place of worship. Now, the building wasn't there, but the place of worship in Christianity. So that's its claim to fame. And the basilica is, well, this one says the oldest major church of the Holy Land. They may have a conflicting claim for the Church of the Resurrection. It's hard for me to sort those out. But, okay, I want to go back to this so you can see it. So again, most everything is either protected with marble, ornately decorated, covered with, these are temporary coverings. They actually change the colors like we change our pyramids. And this picture shows what we didn't see, because at certain times of the year, there is an artwork like a frieze or I don't know if it's mosaic up here above the birthplace of Jesus, and this part of it has been destroyed over time. So it's eroded and destroyed over time, maybe from tourists, maybe from who knows what. But there are parts of it preserved here, and we can find better pictures online. But this is similar. I think it was blue when we went in. But this is similar. But most times of the year, this artwork is not available because they don't want it to be vulnerable to any further destruction. So they have an icon over top of it, and that's what you'll see in my photos. But again, yes, it looks like a fireplace, and so for me, that I was just totally disoriented. The birthplace of Jesus is a fireplace? It's not a fireplace. It's a shrine in the mode of a different culture. And down at the bottom of where the hearth would be, I'm going to show you that this is a 14-pointed star. And then it's got a hollowed out center circle, just big enough for not even me, but most of you to reach your hand in, to touch what is considered the stone that Mary was on when she gave birth to Jesus. Again, how authentic can they?
Yeah.
But that's been the point of worship for so long that so people will kneel down and give homage, and they will reach in and touch the stone there. So that's one of the very few things that they allow people to touch. And then as I turn around, you'll see the place of the manger. And I was so disappointed because we were in and out of there so fast. I thought, I don't get it. This doesn't look like a manger. It had nothing to do. So I've since looked online and I can understand, again, it's a shrine and they've covered it with marble. And there's only just a small strip of the original stone that may have been part of the manger cave. So all of this is that's how they preserve it. So, okay. Church was originally commissioned by Constantine a short time after his mother Helena's visit to Jerusalem on 325 to 326. And Helena has a place in a chapel in the Church of the Resurrection that we'll get to, because by tradition, she at this visit in 325 found the original cross of Jesus. Legend, fact, you'd have to study that and decide for yourself. But that's one of the things that Helena, the mother of Constantine, is venerated for in the other chapel that I'll take you to. The original basilica was likely built between 330 and 333. So in that period that Constantine commissioned it, was dedicated May 31st, 339. I'm glad they can keep that as accurate as it is. It was probably destroyed by fire during the Samaritan revolts of the 6th century. Remember, the Samaritans would be originally thought of as northern Israel. Possibly 529. A new basilica was built a number of years later by a Byzantine emperor, Justinian, who added a porch or a narthex. We know that term. It's an entry place. And replaced the octagonal sanctuary, again, and I didn't look up why octagons are so appropriate for worship of that period, with a cruciform transept with 3 apses, largely preserving the original character of the building, with an atrium and basilica consisting of a nave with 4 side aisles. So now this is talking about the greater church. The nave, does anybody remember what the nave part of the church is? Oh, come on, Jim, I thought you. Right. It is, think of naval, think of ship. All right, so where the pews are in the sanctuary is the nave. That's the boat, that's the ark, if you will. The narthex is the porch, where in our tradition, the confirmands who were not yet confirmed could stand outside and observe worship in the narthex, but they weren't able to come into the nave. That was for when you were baptized and confirmed and so forth. So this church has a big worship space up above, and it's got a big nave with 4 side aisles, and that's where that goes. Okay, so inside the shrine is this 14-pointed star. I'm not remembering why 14 was significant. I looked it up and it's already escaped me. And so, but this is where people will kneel down. And again, the ornate candles or lights representing the various churches that have claim there. This is their way of showing homage, keeping the candles lit. And this is, and maybe the hole's a bit bigger than I thought, because I think I got my hand down in there. And it exposes the rock that is said to be the, so how many of you thought that's what it would look like?
No.
Yeah, I had no idea. I was clueless when I got there. Okay, and it's a 14-pointed silver star to mark the spot with the Latin inscription of Hic de Virgine Maria Jesus Christus Natus, 1717. Here, Jesus Christ was born to the Virgin Mary. Now, not in 1717, but this is when that star was, I believe, reinstalled after it had been taken out. It was installed, oh no, I'm sorry. It was installed by the Catholics in 1717, then removed, allegedly by the Greeks, in 1847, but then replaced by the Turkish government in 1853. The star is set into the marble floor, surrounded by 15 silver lamps, each representing the Christian communities. 6 belong to the Orthodox, 4 to the Catholics, 5 to the Armenian Apostolic. How they came up with the division of that, I'm sure was, but that 1853 date is significant. And that goes back to the agreement called the status quo that exists still today. And this is why those different communities function the way they do, not only the different Christian communities, but the surrounding communities and even the Muslim community. And when I get to the Church of the Resurrection, there is a fascinating fact about how the Muslim community has a role that goes back to the 12th century in that church. Good, I wrote it down.
Good.
Represent the 14 points represent the 3 sets of 14 generations, yes, in the genealogy of Jesus. The first 14 from Abraham to David, then 14 from David to the Babylonian captivity, then 14 more to Jesus Christ, and in the middle is the circular hole to touch the stone. This is how I saw it. So now it's I think the other one was red, this one's blue.
Yeah.
And this, no, I'm sorry, this is an internet photo again. I wanted to get a closer up photo of this tiny mosaic artwork. And you see where it's been destroyed here, but it's a much better picture of the depictions here of the ornateness of the covering of the place of Jesus' birth. And there's some inscription there that I'm not sure what that would be, if it's in Latin or if it's in something else.
On the ceiling, so to speak, over here, is that the original stone?
Yeah, it looks like there's some places, where it's out of reach that they leave it so you can see the grottos and the caves and the stonework. And remember, there's underground stuff that goes all over the place that would have gone to Joseph's house. This is kind of the back room where the animals could come in and the help or the less desirable guests would sleep.
Did it shock your group that you traveled with that everything was, when you walked in, that it wasn't as you depicted it in your mind, or the artifact itself has been so changed with bright colors and ordination and things like that, that you really have to use your imagination to think of what it was.
There was some of that. There was, for all of these sets, this is so different than I'd imagined. But we really didn't have time to sit and reflect after, so we didn't get a lot of that interaction unless it was around the breakfast table.
Move on.
Yeah. So this is a picture from the internet. I'm sorry, I still have to go to the one. Okay, and what's above the altar is called the apse. That's a 12th century mosaic depicting the Nativity, but it's so far gone that you can't quite get it. Oh, good. The base of the mosaic reads, Gloria in excelsis Deo et in terra pax hominibus bone voluntatis. Glory to God in the highest, and peace on earth to, and then remember, men means men and women of goodwill. Homonyms are, we are, not homonyms.
Well, it's all inclusive.
Yeah, I'm going to say the word wrong, but that's the Latin word omnibus, means human. The mosaic was vandalized, unfortunately, in 1873 by Greeks who rioted against the Franciscans. So again, it's a Christian civil war kind of. Fragments of the mosaic can still be seen on the apse, but are covered by an icon. That's what we saw during liturgical celebrations by the Greeks and Armenians. So we must have been there during one of those periods. Okay, so here's what we saw. Now that it's red instead of blue, this is my photo. And so they have an icon now depicting the Nativity, with angels watching, with shepherds and visiting wise men, all that we more traditional. But you see how this is like depicted as a cave. So that gives you an idea of at least what the depiction is, and it's a stone floor. This would be apparently the manger side, which is not what you're looking at now. That was the birthplace. You have to turn around to the other side and see the manger side.
So the stairs would be coming from this direction?
Yes, so on the right would be the stairs down, and this would be on your right, immediate right hand when you came in, and then the stairs out to the left. And it was awkward because you saw the crowd, and then as people went to kneel down at the shrine there and reach their hand in and pray, it's just, yeah, and tripping over people, and, oh, should I go over to this corner first? How much time do I have? What if I look over here?
So now it's like a different thought process of this.
So now flip it around and look the other way.
Yeah.
So now in this picture, my back is kind of to what we just saw. So the steps that we came down are now on the left.
So the three kings actually came down steps.
Well, I don't think these steps are later added.
Oh, later. Okay.
Yeah, what they saw, because for example, the animals had access to this coming in, and if you go back to this, yes, there was a stone covering like a cave, but there was access. The steps would have been added later. And so if this is the manger, the steps that we came down would have been added on the left here, and then out to the right would be the steps going up. Now, this is when they said, okay, look at the manger. I was like, really? I was there.
Looks like a bunk bed.
I was there for just seconds. Yeah, go ahead.
On the top left, you got a partial frame of the picture up there. You had the whole in a couple of pictures below.
Yes.
Before. I was wondering what that was.
It was part of the decoration that
Yeah,
they
right
added.
there, straight up over to the right of the balloon.
Yeah.
What that is, I didn't know.
I've seen that a couple of.
It's a painting of something, I guess.
All right. We'll go home and research that. And tell us.
Good job.
So it was too fast, and I couldn't soak this in and say, I just don't get this. There's pillars, there's things it's covered by marble, that obviously is not. And so I tried to get some pictures from the internet, because this is not my picture. The pictures I took were mostly crowds of people. And when I got up close, I didn't even know what to take a picture of, because I wasn't sure what I was finding. So I've supplemented pictures from the internet. And of course, there are shrines where people light candles. There's the kind of ornate cloth coverings that they will use for, here's covering the ceiling a little bit, but you can see some stonework here, part of the caves. But somewhere in the back here is the commemoration of the spot of the actual manger. All right, so here's a picture I think that I took. And again, it's so covered over and behind this grate and the lamps have a significant, there's 5 of them. But in behind what looks like the fireplace grate back here is a picture of whatever. And I guess the manger part is here. And again, covered over with marble. Now, up above, you can see just a little bit of stonework, so that's the authentic part. But it just surprised me to see how covered everything was.
Those must be the silver lamps where it said that there was 4 for the Catholic and 6 for the Greek Orthodox and 5 for the Armenian.
No, those were actually the 15 in the other side.
On the other
These
side.
5 are another.
So we don't know what those
Yeah,
five
I don't know if I'll have that or not. But you see there's artwork that, again, is another
There's a nativity.
depiction of the nativity here.
Yeah.
But again, apparently this slab covers over the part that would have been in the stone where they put the straw or the hay or whatever, and
Wow.
lay Jesus in the manger in swaddling clothes.
So how tall was that in there? Do they have to kind of bend over or?
Yes, so it's in this, there's your lamps right there. There's those 5 lamps.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, it's like, is this a fireplace? What is this?
Yeah.
So it just was so disorienting to see it laid out this way. And I wasn't prepared for so much of it to have been covered over.
You thought it would look like what it would look like in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got this picture from the internet later,
Yeah.
which helped me to make more sense of it. And this slab then covers the holy spot. Okay, this is interesting. We were told that, and this is locked, of course, for tourists, but they have access to the catacombs in this very church. And this is where I was told this is probably where Joseph's family, you'd go here, and they were in a different place. And this was leading out to where the livestock could come in. So we didn't get to go in there, but there are videos online of the catacombs beneath. One of the things that is sad about the catacombs, but fascinating, is they had ossuaries carved in, places where people were laid, and then they come back in a year and collect the bones. But it is believed, again, I don't know, that in the catacombs beneath are the ossuaries and the tombs where multiple young male babies that were slaughtered by Herod were mass buried in these holy. And Bethlehem's population would have been in the hundreds, not thousands at that point. It was just, so it wasn't like there were hundreds of children slaughtered, but there, of course, there's. But that's what they believe, that's where the bodies of those tragically killed under 2 males were taken down to these catacombs. And so that adds to the holiness of the site. Okay, so now anything on the Church of the Nativity that you want to reflect on, or you know what I should do? Let me see if I can enhance this a little bit with some of these things here. Okay. All right, so this is a video that's 7.5 minutes long, so I might just go with it. Tell me if it's boring or not useful, and I'll bail out. But I thought it was good. It's from a series that I'm finding interesting called Sergio and Rhoda in the Holy Land, or in Israel. And they have taken their GoPro cameras and through their proximity and through their persistence, they've been able to get into places that aren't always easy to get into. So he's going to take us on a little bit of a tour of the Church of the Nativity. I'm going to play it for you and see what you think. And let me know if you can't hear it at home.
We can't hear it at home.
Now, what do I do to get it to play at home here? I gotta do stop share. I'll try that. Gonna try it again. Thank you, Pam. Let's see if it happens. It's hit and miss. Where did it go? There it is. No, it's not. I lost it. Okay. I'll try it again.
No. No, but we got closed caption.
Okay.
Got the caption.
All right. Yeah, I might just have to go with that then. I'm sorry.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Thank stuff. Okay, so
Yes,
here's the massive cathedral where they talked about the Torah. So this is an active worship site that one of the things that you see when you come in. It's of course stunning as you go. That's how they preserved the original. They protected the boards with covers, so you can display them. This scaffolding was not in place when we were there. Same hallway I showed. So here's going down into the that where I said it was 10 by 20. On this show off what move the garden, all that stuff. Well, this is it's exposed to the outside. So. guess I'll bail out of the pitch here. So if you're interested in more, it's Sergio and Rhoda in Israel. You can follow up. They've got more videos than I could count to start with. So, and I hope to revisit a lot of those as I'm studying my footsteps, even from there. Okay, so that concludes the visit to Bethlehem as far as the Church of the Nativity goes. If you look at, for example, if you open to the opening chapters of Luke, to the Nativity story, or Matthew, and what we remember from beautifully preserved in the Christmas carols, shepherds watch their flocks by night, angels we have heard on high. But if we look at, maybe Ethel can help us, are you doing Luke? Yeah. Is it 3 or, I can't remember if it starts, I think there's some
2, I think.
preliminary material in Luke. Yes, it's Luke 2, the whole chapter of Luke 2. If you get to the part of the shepherds, can you find some of that and read it?
That night there were shepherds staying in a field nearby, guarding their flocks of sheep. Suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared among them, and the radiance of the Lord's glory surrounded them. They were terrified, but the angel reassured them. "Don't be afraid," he said. "I bring you good news that will bring great joy to all people. The Savior, yes, the Messiah, the Lord, has been born today in Bethlehem, the city of David. And you will recognize him by this sign. You will find a baby wrapped snugly in strips of cloth, lying in a manger." Suddenly the angel was joined by a vast host of others, the armies of heaven, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in highest heaven, and peace on earth to those with whom God is pleased." Want me to go on?
Yeah, go ahead.
When the angels had returned to heaven, the shepherds said to each other, "Let's go to Bethlehem. Let's see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about." They hurried to the village and found Mary and Joseph, and there was the baby lying in the manger. After seeing him, the shepherds told everyone what had happened and what the angel had said to them about this child. All who heard the shepherd's story were astonished, but Mary kept all these things in her heart and thought about them often. The shepherds went back to their flocks, glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen. It was just as the angel told them.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, so the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, this is kind of, you can see the city part of Bethlehem here. This is where that wall would have gone. Here's the city of Bethlehem with the Church of the Nativity pretty central, right here where the number 1 is. Not too far a distance, we didn't walk it, but it's certainly walkable, to the fields that are believed to be the site of the shepherds. And so that's where we're going to visit next. It's under Franciscan custody, so this is now Roman Catholic. And of course it's open for tourism, and but this I thought was just amazing. Typical to the area, there's enough vegetation that you can see where they could graze, and a lot of it is just preserved, thankfully. Okay, so at these places, and I'm going to excuse myself in a moment here because I brought back some rocks from these caves. I thought I could get away with that. So I will pass around some rocks from these very caves.
It was rocks in his pocket.
Yeah. I have that, and I had 2 twigs from the Garden of Gethsemane, which became 4 twigs when my son was in my office in Muskegon. And, oh, wait a minute. So those were I brought that and a little bottle of water from the Jordan River. So those are the things I smuggled, so forgive me. But there are caves like that, and you can see, my goodness, what kind of formations. They really were able to be dwelling places. So these rock formations are not made by human hands, and you know, they've been worked afterwards, but they were formations. And we were able to get inside of a couple of these caves, and you sing in there. It's just beautiful acoustically. We sang Christmas carols. So this is us descending into they put steps in for the tourists. But this is what the interior of some of these caves look like. And it was believed that for protection, for warmth, for shelter from the elements, that the flocks would often be gathered in here, and then the shepherds would sleep, and again, the warmth from the livestock would help them. So this, when I think of shepherds watch their flocks by night, I think this felt very authentic to me. I could see shepherds and flocks using these very places. Okay, so with that, is it worth me going to get the stones? Can you give me 30 seconds? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, talk amongst yourselves. I forgot to bring them in earlier, I'm sorry.
That's okay, let me see.
But I'm not bringing the twigs yet, because those you have to wait.
Patty, if you want to.
I got dinosaur
Don't worry.
bones. Petrified squid and petrified snails,
I'm gonna make a little coffee.
and 20-pound petrified clam.
Wow.
Anybody want some ice cream?
Sure, go have ice cream.
Yeah,
I don't know.
the Rome also had bodies.
What do you want? I'll get it for you.
I said rocks plural, but it's actually only one. I was feeling so sheepish about taking anything. So, but anyway, this is, and
So how many did you take?
just the one. It leaves a little chalkiness on your hand.
Oh, well, that's probably why they
Wow.
protect everything, because, wow, it does.
So this is limestone?
I don't know if it's limestone or not. I'm not enough of a
Kind of-
geologist to know, but
Kind of seems like
yeah,
it, but
that was, and I picked it up from the floor of the cave where we were
And
sitting.
it was loose, so if
Yes.
you didn't want to.
There were lots
of
over
them.
it.
Oh, that's it, yeah, I was trying to help
Yeah.
people not trip.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Tell that to the Bethlehem authorities that come looking for me.
You know.
My mom should be here, she is a professional, she knew all this.
She would know.
Well, you know, we were able, years and years and years ago, you can't get to the mount, but you can go up into the mountains in Arizona and see where the Indians built their things up in the caves in the rocks to get out of the valley and reach the land.
We'd find rocks.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what
we
we would
would.
use.
Yeah.
That's what you could use to make hopscotch.
Sure.
Yeah, that
Almost
chalk
like
type
a
thing,
porous.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't believe this is limestone personally.
I really wish I
I
knew.
don't think it is, limestone's a little harder than that.
I hope it's not bird droppings.
Petrified.
From an
bird.
albino.
oh my gosh, and I touched it.
Kathy.
Then I wipe my head.
Absolutely.
So, very good. Okay. So that really was the extent of our time in Bethlehem. Those two major sites. And we didn't see any flocks that day, but you could sure see where they could be grazed in those areas there. Very nice. Okay, we have a little time left, so I'm going to shift gears now. And I want to, hold on one second. We'll go to a Bible story here. Okay, if we would go to Matthew 27.
May I read something first about the white mouse?
Yes, please.
It says, according to Google, the milk grotto in Bethlehem is a chapel carved out of soft white rock, and the rock itself is a source of devotion. I lost it. Where'd it go?
Matthew
Here we go.
24:32.
It's a symbol of the Virgin Mary's motherhood and is considered to have miraculous powers. According to tradition, a drop of milk from the Virgin Mary fell on a pink rock while she was breastfeeding Jesus, turning it white. The rock is considered a sign of the Virgin Mary's motherhood and is venerated by Christians and Muslims. They feel that it has miraculous powers
Interesting.
related to fertility.
Okay.
Don't touch it.
When I say Simon of Cyrene, does that ring a bell?
Yes.
You want to give us some
No,
enlightenment?
it just rings a bell.
It just rings a bell. All right, let's look at Matthew 27, verse 32. Now, of course, when we get into Matthew 27, we're toward the end of the gospel now. So this is a major shift of gears from the Nativity to the crucifixion. So we are from going to the beginning of the story to
Yes,
the earthly end of it.
yeah, this is the guy.
Yes, so after mocking Jesus, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him. They led him away to crucify him. And as they went out, they came upon a man from Cyrene named Simon. So this isn't Simon Peter.
Okay.
And they compelled this man to carry the cross. So then they came to a place called Golgotha, which means skull. So all of that is really... Now, I'll look at Mark's description of it and see how similar that is in Mark 15, verse 21. It looks like Matthew may have taken this almost word for word. After mocking him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes on him. They led him out to crucify him. They compelled a passerby who was coming in from the country and they compelled him to carry the cross. It was Simon of Cyrene. This gives an additional detail, the father of Alexander and Rufus. And then Luke's depiction is in Luke 23, and it's very similar. A few details are different. Luke 23, I'm going to start at 25. Pilate released the man they asked for, the one who had been put in prison for insurrection and murder, and he handed Jesus over as they wished. As they led him away, they seized a man. So this one says more than they compelled him. They seized a man, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, and they laid the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. So that's where we're headed next, to a chapel that is dedicated to Simon of Cyrene. And this was on our stop as I don't know, it's later built, and it's part of the Stations of the Cross. You've heard of the Stations of the Cross. You can do that portably in various areas. You can set up Stations of the Cross, but the pilgrimage site is here in Jerusalem, and it culminates in the Church of the Resurrection with, I think it's 13 through 14 or 12 through 14, whatever. The last ones are here, and one of them commemorates where Simon of Cyrene was compelled to carry the cross. And remember, the Roman occupiers, the centurions, if they said, here, pick this up and carry it, you had to carry it for what they call a mile. I'm not sure what the word.
Where was Cyrene at, actually?
On top of the police car?
Is it a town in Israel?
Oh, Joy has joined us.
I didn't
Yeah.
say Siren, I said Cyrene.
I heard siren too.
Yeah. Well, maybe Renee can get on the Google machine for us for that one. Because that's not a stop where we made.
Gotcha.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen with the folks.
Lydia.
And this will be probably the last thing that we touch on today, and then I'll try and give you a teaser for next time.
Are we
When
going
are
to
we
see
going to the garden?
Yosemite?
Eventually. I'm holding out on you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, but I,
You're jingling it.
yes, and I will have some detailed photos of that.
It's
So. Okay, here's,
Cyrene is northeastern Libya
Oh, okay.
in North
Northeastern.
Africa.
I could have told you that, I was just
North
testing
of
you.
Flagstaff.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Just a little.
We gotta love him.
Okay, oops, there we go.
Back in the cave.
Okay, so now we are inside the city of Jerusalem now, in the walls here. And so on the right side here, you'll see, here's the Dome of the Rock, the temple courtyard. This would be the western wall here. So all of that is one section where the temple is, and the city is divided into quarters. There's the Jewish quarter, the Muslim quarter, there's a different Christian group. I'll get to that. But there's 4 quarters, and they're very distinct when you walk in between. You can freely go into all of them. At least we could at the time. So where the arrow points is this on the Stations of the Cross. And just to give you a little orientation, right here on where I'm circling the upper left there, it says Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This is where we visited, that again is a shrine to the place where it's believed that Jesus was crucified and very nearby entombed. All right. There's a dispute as to whether or not that actually is the place, but this is probably the most favored by most Christian traditions for their pilgrimages. So in relation to the temple and to where we're staying at, the Via Dolorosa comes, and I think it follows this pattern like this, the way of suffering, the Stations of the Cross goes through here and up there. And along the way, there's 14 different Stations of the Cross. So here we're just a distance away, not quite halfway from the Temple Mound to the Church of the Sepulchre. Okay, I was just looking to see if that other piece was anything significant. So again, this is later construction, and this was our Sunday morning worship. So, so this isn't really anything of historical significance. It is more the pilgrimage significance, a depiction of Simon of Cyrene being taking the burden of the cross from Jesus and carrying it himself.
According to Google, that cross weighed about 88 pounds.
Oh, gee.
And I've heard that it was only the crossbar, not the whole, the pole was already mounted. I'm not sure.
Exactly.
I mean, when you see in the parades people carrying I'm guessing more the crossbar, and that's how that was done. So, and this was, again, they have a little chapel here. This is where we had our worship. We had communion that day. And you'll see the little wooden communion cups made of the olive trees there, native to the region. I brought home enough of those to give to all the people in Muskegon. And we had communion, and I took them to the people that we visited home communion with. I still have a couple of them. They are available to order if that's ever anything somebody would want.
I have
And
one.
you have
I have 3 or 4. I got mom's, but you
Yes,
gave her,
okay.
and then the ones you gave me, so.
So they're carved from olive. Most of them are intact. Sometimes you get one with a crack in it. So it's you have to be careful with if you use the juice. But we each got a cup, and I thought, well, this would be something if I could take home. And there is the business, I still get emails from them called Holy Land Treasures. And they say, pray for us, you know, they're still doing it. And they carve all kinds of things out of olive wood, ornate nativity scenes, and they'll do life-size, I mean, just huge trees. And so depending on how much you want to spend, I did 100 communion cups. But there was somebody in our group that bought a nativity that's just astonishingly carved out of olive, and it was several $100s. And some of those are several thousand. You can, but Holy Land Treasures, if you're curious about what kinds of things are available. One of our guides offered and presided over communion for us.
That was him sitting back in the corner.
So, well, he was with our group as a guide, the priest there. I can't remember if he was part of the guides or if he was part of the group. Okay, so that takes you as at least one glimpse on one of the stations of the cross. It just happened to come chronologically for us on a Sunday morning when we wanted to gather for worship. And this is the typical site where they take groups like ours to have communion together. All right, coming up next week, well, let's see, we've got a few minutes. I might go into this a little bit. We'll probably start it today and finish it up next week. But now it's called the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. It is one of the sites that is reputed to have been where Golgotha, the place of the skull, where Jesus was crucified, and not far from there, the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea, I believe, that Jesus would have been entombed in. And it's pretty fascinating. So now we're going to go to another one of those big basilicas that was built after Constantine authorized it, then destroyed, then rebuilt. All that's very similar to the one that we saw in Bethlehem. The construction of this I don't think an architect could draw it. There's at least 6 floors. And you don't know where the basilica begins and where the outer buildings end. There are no boundaries that make any sense. And you see here, this little area here is not very little. It's actually the wooden doors. They're very weathered. They're probably, I will say, 13 to 14 feet high. So here's where most people are, or maybe 12 at least. So these are the entry doors, and they're very significant. So when you're going to visit the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, that's where you go in. And the first thing you see is the slab of unction, the place where it is said that Jesus was anointed for burial. So this stone is venerated as, okay, this is where Joseph of Arimathea took him, and they anointed his body and wrapped it up in the burial cloths. And as you see, people venerate the stone. Whether or not it was authentic, again, it's authentic in that the church for centuries, millennia, has venerated it. So that part of it's authentic. Whether or not Jesus was laid on this slab, that's a matter of faith. But there's a great iconic painting on the back wall of Jesus laid on the slab. I may have another close-up of it. And being attended to, and then there's a host of the saints gathered around. So when we turn to go towards the shrine of the place of crucifixion, this is the shrine of the 3 Marys. 3 Marys? I thought there were 2. So let's name the Marys if we can.
Mary, the mother of Jesus.
Mother of Jesus.
Mary Magdalene.
Mary Magdalene.
And Mary.
Queen Mary's right.
There was another one of the mothers, wasn't it? And then there was.
Yes. Okay. Let me see if I can find it quickly here. I looked it up last night. Crucifixion.
Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother, and Mary the just got cut off over there on the edge.
Isn't it Lazarus's sister?
Mary and Martha, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a sister.
And let's see. Okay. I had the answer.
Mary the mother of James and Salome bought spices.
Yes.
Oh, mother of Joseph.
Joseph and Salome. Mother of James the Younger, who was one of the apostles, or the smaller, they call him.
Shoot.
Joseph, it was there at the top.
I hate it when I study things and
If you
forget them.
back up just a bit, it was the top paragraph.
No, that's not it. That's after the crucifixion. Okay,
Mary of Clopas.
I just got myself into something I can't explain here, I'm sorry. But I will see if I'm gonna see if the Google machine will rescue me. The three Marys at the tomb, okay.
Mary of Clopas. Yeah.
All right. Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James,
And
and
Mary
Mary
Salome.
Salome discover that Jesus is no longer in the tomb. So that's the shrine for the three Marys. So again, we're talking about the resurrection there. Okay, so, goodness. All right, hopefully this is still on the screen here. Current slide. All right, so hopefully at home you're seeing the shrine of the three Marys. There's the typical iconic painting of Jesus being crucified there with the halo. That's very typical of the artwork there. This is where the line began for us to get into the interior, which is under a massive the big structure with a dome roof, a dome ceiling. And then inside is a building, basically, a shrine, like we saw at the Nativity. So, and there it is.
Oh, wow.
So,
Wow.
and you see the line going around.
Yeah.
You circle around and you come into this ornate side here.
Love the color of it.
That kind of takes away from the line.
Well, yeah, it's not what I expected.
Yeah.
So again, I want to respect the people who feel like they are honoring God in the best way
Yes.
by doing it.
It's like the line to go into the Vatican Museum and around
Yeah.
there, just like that.
And there's the picture of the dome
Wow.
up above. So, and this is one of those sites that's under that agreement of status quo. Again, this is occupied by several Christian entities, and it has quite a story. I got a little better picture of the entrance here, and by now you're probably getting an idea of this is the typical look when they want to venerate something holy here. As far as, well, let's see, I have to go to the internet now I found some things on the internet that I want to share about this, and we'll close it down and we can maybe pick up on it next time.
Jennifer.
Was Jennifer on for a while?
Yeah, I saw her for a little bit. Okay, where am I? There, okay, let's do this. All right. There we go. I had that up earlier here. Interestingly, let's see, did I do? Yes, okay. I don't have time to do videos here, but I'll give you a teaser for next time. We'll probably use these. This really is helpful. So still, the wife of Cleophas is said to be Mary's sister, Mary, the mother of Jesus' sister. So, okay, so that whets your appetite a little bit.
Yeah.
You two daughters married.
One of the things that's amazing to me, where is it? We actually saw some of the carved out tombs of that showed that it was Joseph of Arimathea that looked like this. And I got to get close up to some of those and look in. So, So that will be our starting point for next time, as we look at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And then we'll consider that this is probably the most favored by just population site of where Jesus was crucified, but there'll be another one that's kind of held by others as, no, this is more authentic. And you can decide for yourself, so. Okay. All right, okay for today?
Awesome.
Anybody wanting to bail out of this anytime soon? Okay. All right. I'm open to, if we need to take a break or whatever, so.
I have a question. Jesus' cross, was it made out of olive trees?
Probably not, just from knowing olive trees and their makeup. To get something large and solid like that, I don't think it would be possible. I don't want to venture a guess as to cedar or something, because I don't know if they would have brought something in. But I just can't imagine, olive trees are not the kind that you would build with. Yeah, I mean, you can make artwork and that kind of stuff, but the trunks are like gnarly, several shoots mangled together, pretty majestic. But to get a solid piece of, like a railroad tie, would be pretty rare, I think, from that kind of wood. Okay. Any questions or any thoughts before moving on for next time? Okay, may we bow then in prayer. I'm going to stop the recording first here, for just feel like I want to do that.